Chapter 1. The Quiet Child. Maya Brooks came into this world quietly. She grew up with two parents who spoke in strict tones and never smiled for long. She wanted to laugh like other kids, but each time she opened her mouth, her father said, "Not now." She wanted to play outside, but her mother said, "Stay in." She wanted friends, but she was told, "You don't need them." So Maya learned to sit still. She learned to keep her feelings hidden. She learned that if she cried, no one would come to ask why. She learned to survive by being silent. When she was 6, she saw children running outside her window. She pressed her hand on the glass and whispered, "I wish I could be there." But she stayed inside. She felt like she was watching life from far away. When school finally started, for her, she walked in with shaking hands. She did not know how to talk to other children. She had never spoken to kids before. Her voice felt small. Her heartbeat felt loud. The teacher asked her name and she whispered, "Maya." That was all. She sat alone at lunch. She watched other girls laugh. She wanted to join them, but she feared they would think she was strange. One girl dropped a pencil and Maya picked it up for her. The girl smiled and said, "Thank you." That small moment felt like sunshine. She told herself, "Maybe I can make one friend." But when she went home and told her mother about the smile, her mother only said, "Study. Friends are a waste of time." Maya stayed silent again. She wanted to draw flowers and people. She wanted colors. She wanted art. One day at school, the teacher said there was an art club. Maya felt her heart jump. She imagined holding crayons and making pictures. She went home and said softly, "Mom, can I join art class?" Her mother looked at her and said, "No, art is useless. Focus on your books." That night, Maya lay in her bed with her pillow wet. She whispered, "Why can't I want something?" She was a child with big dreams but no freedom to feel them. As she grew older, her quietness became heavier. She stopped asking for things. She stopped sharing anything. She stopped expecting love. When she turned 10, she made a small drawing of a bird on a piece of paper she found in the trash. She hid it inside a book. Her father found it one day and said, "Stop wasting time." He tore it slowly. She watched the pieces fall. Her heart felt the same way. She wanted to scream, but she stayed still. She realized something important that day. She realized her voice did not matter in that house. She entered middle school with a heart full of old wounds. She sat at the back of the class. She did homework early so no one could complain. One day the teacher asked the class to talk about their dreams. Children said they wanted to be doctors, dancers, singers, writers. When it was Maya's turn, she looked down and said, "I don't know." The teacher said gently, "It's okay. You will find it." But Maya felt something break inside. She knew she did know. She knew she wanted art. She knew she wanted friends. She knew she wanted laughter. But she also knew she was not allowed to want. As the years passed, one girl named Hannah started sitting next to her. Hannah talked softly and asked, "Are you okay?" No one had asked Maya that before. Maya nodded. Hannah smiled. They became quiet friends. Hannah shared her lunch. Maya shared her notes. One day Hannah said, "You can talk to me, you know." Maya smiled for the first time in years. But at home, when Maya tried to mention Hannah, her parents said, "Stop wasting time." So Maya learned to keep the friendship hidden. Many nights she cried silently. She looked at her own hands and whispered, "Why am I like this? Why can't I be normal?" She felt alone even when people were around her. She felt small even when she tried to stand tall. She felt empty even when she wanted to feel full. She wanted a hug. She wanted someone to say, "You are enough." But no one said it. So she told it to herself quietly. Maybe one day when she was 13, she overheard her father saying, "She is too soft. She will fail in life." The words cut deep. She went into the bathroom, held her chest and said, "I will try. I will not fail." She did not know how she would do it, but she had to believe something. She had to believe she could be someone, even if no one saw it yet. Maya grew up like a tree without sunlight, but something inside her refused to die. She carried pain, but she also carried hope. She carried silence, but she also carried dreams. And she carried one unspoken promise inside her heart. One day I will find my place. Like, subscribe and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishengalish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 2. The Boy I Trusted. When Maya entered college, she felt like a bird who did not know how to fly. She walked into the building with slow steps. She carried her old fears with her. She told herself, "Try to be brave." But her voice still felt small inside her own body. She sat alone in the corner of the classroom. She watched other students talk, laugh, and take pictures. She felt like she did not belong anywhere. She wondered if she would ever feel normal. She wondered if she would ever feel seen. One day, a boy named Evan Carter sat beside her. He looked at her and smiled in a warm way she had never known. He said, "Hi, I'm Evan." She nodded and said softly, "I'm Maya." He laughed and said, "You don't talk much, do you?" She looked down, embarrassed. He leaned closer and said, "It's okay. Quiet girls are interesting." For the first time, someone said her silence was special. Her heart felt warm. She told herself, "Maybe he sees me." Days passed and Evan began sitting next to her every day. He asked her questions. He made jokes. He told stories. He made her laugh. She felt safe when he talked. She felt like someone finally cared. One afternoon he looked at her and said, gently, "You have beautiful eyes, Maya." She froze. No one had ever said anything kind like that. Her chest filled with a strange new feeling. She whispered, "Thank you." That night she could not sleep. She replayed his words again and again. As time passed, Evan became her closest person. She shared little pieces of her life with him. She told him she felt lonely growing up. She told him she loved art but never got a chance. She told him she wished she had a childhood. Evan listened and said, "You deserved better." Those words felt like a soft blanket around her heart. She began to depend on his voice. She began to trust his eyes. She began to believe that maybe she was worth something after all. But slowly, small shadows appeared. One day he asked, "Why do you talk to other boys?" She was confused. She said, "We are classmates." He said, "You don't need them. You have me." She laughed nervously and said, "I'm just being friendly." He replied, "Be friendly with me." She felt a small sting in her chest, but she ignored it because she wanted love. She wanted warmth. She wanted something she never had before. Another day she talked about joining a small art program. Evan looked unhappy. He said, "Why do you want that? You don't need art." She said softly, "I like drawing." He looked at her and said, "You don't need that. Stay focused on me." She fell silent. Her old childhood pain returned. A voice inside her said, "Please let me have something." But she smiled and said nothing because she feared losing him. Soon he became the center of her world. He walked her to class. He waited for her after lectures. He said, "You are my best friend." She felt special when he said that. She felt like she belonged to someone. She told herself, "Maybe love can fix me." But slowly he began making small rules. He said, "Call me when you reach home." He said, "Don't go anywhere without telling me." He said, "You don't need hobbies." She tried to explain gently. I just want a small life for myself. He replied, you don't need anything. Except me. His voice was soft, but his words were heavy. One evening he held her hand and said, why do you need a degree? You can marry me. Maya felt her heart jump. She had never imagined someone wanting her in that way. She said in a small voice, but I want to study. He squeezed her hand and said, your place is with me. I will take care of you. She felt confused. She felt scared, but she also felt loved. She asked herself, what if I lose him? That fear was bigger than everything else. Her parents said nothing when she mentioned Evan. They only said, do whatever he says. She looked at them and felt the same loneliness she felt as a child. She felt like no one cared about her dreams. She felt like no one asked, what do you want, Maya? She wanted someone to choose her. She wanted someone to say she mattered. So when Evan asked her to marry him, she said yes. He hugged her and whispered, you made the right choice. She believed him. She left her college classes slowly. She told her teacher, I am leaving. The teacher asked, are you sure? Maya forced a smile and said, yes. But inside she felt something break. She felt like she had dropped her own future on the floor. But she looked at Evan and told herself, this is love. They planned a small wedding. She stood in front of the mirror and whispered, I hope he keeps me safe. She wanted a life different from her childhood. She wanted peace. She wanted a home that felt warm. Before the wedding, Evan held her face and said, you are mine, Maya. Only mine. She felt fear for a second, but she pushed it away. She told herself, he loves me. He needs me. Maya walked into marriage with a heart full of hope, fear, and innocence. She did not know the road ahead. She did not know the pain waiting for her. She did not know how deeply she would break. She only knew one thing. She had trusted a boy who held her heart, and she prayed he would not crush it. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 3. A Marriage Too Early. Maya married Evan with a heart full of soft hope. She held his hand and whispered, please don't leave me. She wanted love so badly. She wanted a place where she could rest her tired soul. She prayed that marriage would give her a new life. First it felt almost real. He called her my girl. He kissed her forehead and said, you're safe with me. She believed him because she needed to believe something she had never known safety before, so even a small kind word felt like a warm blanket. She told herself, maybe everything will get better now. When she became pregnant with her first child, she felt joy rise inside her. After many years, she placed Evan's hand on her belly and whispered, she is ours. He smiled at first, then he changed. He started telling her what to wear. He said, don't dress like that. She tried to explain, I like this, but he shook his head and said, not in my house. She swallowed her words again. She remembered her father's voice from childhood and her heart sank, but she kept smiling because she did not want to lose the only love she had. Their daughter Lily came into the world like a tiny light. Maya held the little girl close and said, I will protect you. She felt strong for her baby. She felt needed. She felt like her life finally had a purpose. But Evan looked at the baby with tired eyes and said, she cries too much. Maya tried to comfort him. She said, she is small. She needs us. He walked away and said, handle it. She felt a small fear inside her chest. But she stayed quiet. She did not want to break the fragile peace in the house. Slowly, Evan became harder. He started coming home late. He said, I was with my friends. She looked at him with tired eyes and said, I needed you today. He shrugged and said, don't make everything about you. His words cut deep. She whispered. I'm trying. He replied. Try harder. She did not know what else she could give. She was already giving her whole life. One night she asked softly, Do you still love me? He looked annoyed and said, Stop asking stupid questions. She felt her throat tighten. She wanted to cry but held her tears back. Another night he came home angry. He raised his voice at her. He pointed at her clothes and said, Why did you wear this? She said in a small voice, I wanted to feel pretty. He shouted, You look wrong. She stood still. She felt her heart shake. She whispered, I'm sorry. She didn't even know what she was apologizing for. Then one night he pushed her. It was not hard enough to injure her, but it was hard enough to break something inside her. She sat on the floor and whispered, Why are you doing this? He said, Because you make me angry. She cried quietly. She did not scream. She did not fight. She only held her knees and told herself, Maybe tomorrow will be better. She carried that lie like a shield, because she had nothing else. When she got pregnant again, she hoped it would soften him. She hoped the new baby would bring peace, but it did not. Their son Noah arrived into a world full of cracks. Evan did not come to the hospital. She held her newborn alone. She whispered, I'm here, baby. I will not leave you. She waited for Evan to walk through the door, but he didn't come. When she finally returned home with the baby in her arms, Evan looked at her and said, Why are you back so early? She felt a deep stab in her chest. She said gently, The nurse said I was okay to come home. He shrugged and said, Whatever. A week later, Maya found a message on his phone. A woman's name, a woman's heart emoji, a woman saying, Miss you. Maya felt her hands shake. She looked at Evan and whispered, Who is she? He did not even pretend to lie. He said, Someone better. She felt all the air leave her body. She said, I am your wife. He looked coldly and replied, And she makes me happier. She broke silently. She felt like her heart fell on the floor and shattered. She went to her parents for help. She said, Please take me home. Her mother looked at her and said, You are married. Now, stay with him. Maya felt abandoned again. She felt like she was reliving her childhood pain. Number one stood beside her. No one said, I see you're hurt. She took her babies and walked back to the place that was breaking her. 3 months later, Evan joined the army. He left without looking back. He said, You can manage. She held her 2 children close and whispered, We will try. But she was tired. She cried late at night. She held her chest and said, Please don't break me anymore. She felt trapped, but she kept waking up every day for her children. She told herself, I must survive for them. She did not know that this marriage would shape her for years. She did not know she would lose more. She did not know she would find herself again one day. She only knew one thing. She had entered a marriage too early and now she was drowning in it. Super thanks. Support our channel if you like the story. Read more on bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 4. The Girl Who Disappeared. When Evan left for the army, Maya stood in the doorway with her 2 children, feeling like the ground under her feet had cracked open. He carried his bag, looked at her once and said, You'll manage. Then he turned away. She watched him walk off like she was nothing. She held Lily in one arm and Noah in the other, and whispered, I don't know how, but I will try. Her voice shook. Her hands shook. Her whole life shook. But she did not fall, because her children were holding on to her clothes like she was the only safe thing they knew. Days changed into weeks. Evan did not call much, and when he did, he sounded distant. He sounded like a man who had already left her long before he walked out the door. One day he called and said, I met someone. Maya felt her heart freeze. She whispered, Why? He said in a calm voice, She understands me better. Maya held the phone tightly, her tears dropped on the floor. She could only say, I'm still your wife. He replied, I'm happier with her. And the line went silent. That silence stayed in the house like a ghost. Maya tried to stay strong for her children, but every night she cried. Quietly, she sat on the bathroom floor and whispered, It hurts too much. She looked at herself in the mirror and felt like she did not know the woman. Staring back, she looked tired. She looked weak. She looked lost. She said to herself, Where did I go? When did I disappear? She felt like her own identity had slipped away slowly, piece by piece, until nothing was left. Then her world broke even more. Her father died suddenly. She did not even get a chance to say goodbye. She held Lily and Noah close and said, He is gone. Grandpa is gone. But inside she thought, everything I knew is going away from me. Her mother moved to another state soon after. Maya begged her, Stay with me. I need you. But her mother said, I need a quiet life. I can't handle everything. Maya felt abandoned again, just like she felt as a child. She whispered, It's okay. But her heart was cracking open. Days became heavier. She woke up early for the kids, fed them, dressed them, cleaned the house, and took care of everything alone. She felt like she was drowning slowly. One night, Lily looked at her and said, in a small voice, Mom, why are your eyes always sad? The question hit her like a knife. She pulled her daughter close and said, quietly, Mom is just tired. But deep inside she wondered how much pain her children had seen. She hated that they were growing up with this heaviness. 5 months later, Evan called again. This time his voice was different. He said, I made a mistake. Take me back. Maya stood still. She felt anger, love, fear, hope, and confusion all fighting inside her. She said softly, You broke me. He replied, I will be better. She looked at her kids sleeping nearby and whispered, Okay. She did not say it because she trusted him. She said it because she was tired. She said it because she still wanted a family. She said it because she was afraid of raising 2 children alone forever. Evan returned, but the man who came back was not the man she married. He brought his anger with him. He brought his coldness with him. He brought his old habits with him. One evening he looked at her and said, Stop acting like a victim. She said quietly, I just want peace. He laughed and said, You make everything dramatic. She turned away so he would not see her tears. She told herself again, maybe he just needs time. But deep inside she knew she was lying to herself. One morning she looked at her reflection and whispered, Who am I now? She felt empty. She felt like a shadow. She felt like the young girl who once dreamed of art, laughter, and joy had disappeared somewhere along the way. She felt like only her name was left, not her soul. She whispered, I want to come back. I want to find myself. But she had no idea how. The more she tried to fix the marriage, the more she felt herself breaking. Evan would say cold words like, You're too emotional. Or, You should be grateful I returned. One day he said, Stop talking so much. And she froze because she realized something painful. She realized she had spent her whole life trying not to exist too loudly. She had spent her whole life shrinking herself, first for her parents, now for her husband. She felt her chest tighten with a quiet scream inside her heart. Maya reached a point where she woke up and said, I cannot live like this anymore. She looked at her children. She touched their hair gently and whispered, I will find a way to be strong. She did not say it loudly. She did not need to. She said it with a quiet determination that she had never felt before. This was the moment Maya started to come back. She did not know it yet, but this was the moment the girl who disappeared began to return. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 5. The Day I Broke Inside. Maya tried to hold her family together after Evan returned, but every day felt heavier than the last. She woke up each morning telling herself, "You have to stay calm. The children need you." But her heart was tired. Her mind was tired. Her soul felt thin, like one touch could tear it apart. Evan walked around the house like a storm that came without warning. Some days he was quiet. Some days he was cold. Some days he acted like she was invisible. And some days he used his words like knives. He would say, "You complain too much," or "You should be stronger." She wanted to say, "I am trying," but the words stayed inside her throat. One evening everything changed. Evan came home in a bad mood. He dropped his bag on the floor and said, "This house is a mess." Maya looked around. The house was clean. The kids were fed. The dishes were done. But she stayed quiet because she knew the real mess was not the house. The real mess was inside him. She said in a soft voice, "Are you okay?" He looked at her sharply and said, "Why? Do you always ask that? Stop bothering me." She felt her heart dip. She whispered, "I just care." He stepped closer and said, "Then stop caring." Those words cut deeper than anything he had ever said. That night, Lily came to her and said, "Mom, why is Dad angry at you?" Maya hugged her tightly. She held her so close that she could feel her daughter's small heartbeat. She whispered, "It's not your fault, baby." But inside she felt shame. She hated that her daughter had to see this. She hated that her son watched in silence. She hated that her pain was touching the people she loved the most. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Please God, help me." Her tears fell on Lily's hair. Later, when the kids were asleep, Maya entered the bedroom quietly. Evan was sitting on the bed scrolling on his phone. She stood near the door and said softly, "Can we talk?" He didn't look up. He said, "About what?" She swallowed her fear and said, "I feel alone." He laughed. He didn't even hide it. He said, "Then find something else to do." The sound of his laugh felt like a slap to her soul. She whispered, "I'm your wife. I need you." He looked finally at her and said in a cold voice, "You're too emotional. It's annoying." She felt something break in her chest. She said nothing more. She walked out of the room before he could see her cry. She sat on the kitchen floor alone. Her hands covered her face. She whispered, "Why am I never enough?" She remembered her childhood. She remembered her parents' harsh words. She remembered how she always tried to please everyone. She remembered the little girl who once wanted to draw birds and flowers. She asked herself, where is that girl now? Felt like she had vanished long ago. Maya pulled her knees close and cried in a way she had never cried before. Her tears were deep. They came from years of pain. They came from years of silence. They came from years of trying to hold a life that kept slipping away. Then something happened that she would never forget. Noah walked into the kitchen half asleep, holding his small blanket. He looked at her with tired eyes and said, "Mom, don't cry." He touched her face with his tiny hand. It broke her completely. She hugged him tightly and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby." She cried into his hair. She said, "I will be stronger. I promise." That moment was the moment she knew she could not live like this anymore. That was the night she broke inside. But it was also the night something new began to rise. She stood up, wiped her tears, and looked at her reflection on the microwave door. Her face was swollen. Her eyes were red, but she whispered to herself, "This is not the end. This is the start of me." For the First time she felt a small spark of strength. It was small, but it was real, and she held on to it like a lifeline. Chapter 6. A Neighbor's Hand. Maya woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a tired heart. She moved slowly around the kitchen making breakfast for the kids. Her body felt heavy, but she kept going because she had no choice. Lily hugged her waist and said softly, "Mom, you look sad again." Maya forced a small smile and said, "I'm just tired, baby." But inside she felt empty. She felt like she had lost every part of herself. She whispered in her heart, "I cannot break again." But she also did not know how to stand strong yet. That afternoon there was a soft knock on her door. Maya opened it slowly. A woman stood there holding a small plate of muffins. She smiled gently and said, "Hi, I'm Grace. I live next door." Maya felt nervous. She did not know what to say. Grace said, "You look tired. I thought maybe you needed a friend." Those words felt strange to Maya. No one had ever said such a thing to her. She whispered, "Thank you." Grace smiled again and said, "Come over for tea. You don't have to talk. Just sit with me." For a moment Maya wanted to refuse. She feared Evan's reaction, but a small voice inside her said, "You need someone." So she nodded. When Maya sat in Grace's home, she felt something warm for the first time in a long time. Grace looked at her gently and said, "You don't have to pretend here." Maya lowered her eyes. Her throat tightened. She tried to say she was fine, but instead tears came out. She put her hand on her face and whispered, "I am tired. I am so tired." Grace touched her hand softly and said, "You deserve peace." Those simple words broke something open in Maya. She cried in front of a stranger because it felt safer than crying at home. She said quietly, "I don't know who I am anymore." Grace replied, "You are a woman with a good heart and you are not alone." Days later, Grace returned with another small gesture. She said, "You are good with your hands. Why not bake at home?" People buy homemade cakes. Maya felt unsure. She said, "Who will buy from me?" Grace smiled and said, "I will, and others will too." Maya held the idea in her heart. It felt like a seed, small, soft, fragile, but alive. She whispered, "Maybe I can try." She baked a small cake that week. It was simple, but she felt proud when she placed it on the table. Grace tasted it and said, "This is beautiful." Those words touched Maya deeply. She said quietly, "Thank you for believing in me." Slowly she started baking more. She made cookies, small cakes, cupcakes for birthdays. Grace helped her make a small list of prices. She helped her send messages to neighbors. People began to order little things. Maya earned a few dollars here and there, but it felt like a mountain to her. Felt like she had finally done something for herself after so many years. One evening she counted the small bills in her hand. She whispered, "I did this." Her eyes filled with tears. But this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of hope. Then came the moment she feared. Evan came home early and saw her baking. He frowned and said, "What are you doing now?" Maya took a slow breath and said, "I am working." He walked closer and said, "You don't need to work." She looked at him quietly. Something inside her was different now. She said in a steady voice, "I need this. I am doing this for me and the kids." He stared at her in surprise. He said, "Since when do you talk like that?" She replied, "Since I decided to stop disappearing." He looked angry for a moment, but he walked away without saying more. That night when she lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "You did not break today." As days passed, Maya slowly built small boundaries. They were not loud. They were not big. But they were hers. When Evan raised his voice, she said softly, "Please stop." When he blamed Her for everything, she said. That is not fair. When he told her to change her clothes again, she said, I like this dress. They were small steps, but small steps change lives. And she felt them changing her. Grace continued to support her. One afternoon, Grace looked at her and said, You are getting stronger. Maya shook her head and said, I am scared. Grace touched her shoulder and said, Strength and fear can live together. What matters is that you don't stop. Maya closed her eyes and let those words enter her heart. For the first time in her life, Maya felt like she had someone who cared, someone who listened, someone who wanted her to rise. And that soft support became the start of her healing. She still cried sometimes. She still felt lost sometimes. She still feared many things. But she also felt something new. She felt a small but growing belief that she could become someone again. And that belief changed everything. Chapter 7. Finding My Voice. Maya changed slowly, but the change was real. She started speaking in small but strong ways. When Evan shouted, she did not bend. She said, Please stop. Her voice was calm. Her voice was new. Evan stared at her and said, What happened to you? She answered softly, I am done being silent. These words surprised even her. But they felt right. They felt strong. Her baking work grew a little. People ordered more. She held the money she earned with shaky hands and whispered, I did this. It was a small amount, but it meant freedom. It meant courage. It meant she was slowly finding herself again. She felt something rise inside her. Hope. One day, Evan came home upset. He said, I lost my job. Maya felt fear, but she stayed steady. She said, We will handle it. He looked shocked. He said, You used to listen to everything I said. Maya looked into his eyes and said, That was the old me. She felt her heart beat fast, but she did not look away. At night, she sat her day alone and whispered, You cannot go back. She remembered the child who was scared. She remembered the wife who cried. She remembered the woman who almost disappeared. She placed her hand on her chest and said, I am still here. She made small changes every day. She learned to drive. She learned to say no. She learned to say, This is not okay. One day she looked at Evan and said, If you hurt me again, I will leave. He smirked. You won't. She replied quietly, Watch me. This time he had no answer. Her children saw her strength. Lily hugged her and said, Mom, you look brave. Noah smiled and said, Mom, you smile more now. She held them both and whispered, You give me power. Their words gave her more strength than anything else. Grace also noticed the change. She took Maya's hand and said, You are coming back. Maya felt tears rise. She said quietly, I was gone for a long time. Grace squeezed her hand and said, Not anymore. Maya still had fears. She still had scars. But she had found her voice. And once she found it, she knew she could never lose it again. Chapter 8. The Woman I Became. Maya woke up one morning with a strange calm inside her heart. It was not loud. It was not bright. It was soft, but it felt real. She stood in front of the mirror and saw a woman who had lived through storms. She saw a woman who had cried in silence for years. She saw a woman who had broken many times but still stood every day for her children. She whispered, You made it this far. Her voice trembled, but she felt proud. For the first time in her life, her baking orders increased slowly. People trusted her. They liked her kindness. They liked the love she put into each cake. One customer said, Your cakes taste like comfort. Maya smiled softly and said, Thank you. Those words touched her heart. She felt seen in a new way. She felt valuable. She felt like she was building a life with her own hands. At home, Evan watched her quietly. He saw the change but did not understand. One evening he asked, "Why are you acting so strong?" Maya looked at him and said, "Because I am strong." He shook his head and said, "You used to depend on me." She replied, "Not anymore." Her voice was steady. Her eyes were calm. Evan looked confused, almost lost. He said, "Do you still love me?" Maya took a deep breath and said, "I love myself now." For the first time she meant those words. Her children saw her glow. Lily hugged her and said, "Mom, you look happy." Maya held her daughter close and whispered, "I am trying to live for us." Noah sat beside her one afternoon and said, "Mom, I like when you smile." She kissed his forehead and said, "I smile because of you." Their love healed parts of her she thought were gone forever. One day a small bakery shop offered to sell her cakes. Maya stood there holding the paper in her hand, unable to speak. The owner said, "We believe in you." Her eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly and whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." She walked home with a new light in her heart. She said to herself, "Maybe my future can be different." At night she sat alone and remembered her younger self, the quiet child, the scared wife, the broken mother. She whispered, "You went through so much." She placed her hand on her heart and said, "But you never gave up." Tears fell, but this time they were tears of release, not pain. She said softly, "I survived." Those words felt like freedom. Evan changed a little, but Maya no longer depended on his change. She no longer waited for him to be the man she hoped for. She no longer begged for love. She no longer begged for peace. She created her own peace. She created her own strength. She created her own future. Maya finally became the woman she always wished to be. Quiet but not weak. Soft but not scared. Kind but not broken. She found her voice. She found her power. She found herself. And she promised never to lose herself again. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. The end.